One of the most important aspects of sustainability on the homestead is growing your own animal feed. I've put a lot of work, thought, and practice into this over the past several years, and this is something I'd like to talk about today. So let's talk about variety of crops, what's a good option, what may be a good option for you, and how to select between those options. And then we'll talk about viability of feed value. So let's work down this list by crop type, and I'm going to start with the simplest of all, and that is your perennial pasture crops, starting with grass. Any type of grass, basically all grasses are fairly equal for the most part. Grass is the hardiest plant you can grow. It's a perennial wild grass type thing, so a perennial crop. All you got to do is have fertile soil, and it grows very well. You can do a very good grass harvest in fertile soil. Another good option is chicory. A lot of people overlook chicory. Chicory is a great high protein green fodder crop for your horses, sheep, goats, that kind of thing. Cows too. It's a great mineral supplement crop and vitamin crop too. Chicory is one of the things that I give to my pigs as well, because chicory is a accumulator of selenium as well as a bunch of other trace minerals. Basically, any plant that has that taproot kind of thing, chicory, dandelion, burdock, those kind of things, they tend to accumulate a lot of the trace minerals that animals have a hard time getting. Around here, we don't have much selenium in the soils. So I've got to take some of those plants that have higher selenium levels in particular, like chicory, and I'm feeding those to my pigs because while selenium deficiency causes white muscle disease, which causes paralysis in pigs and other animals too, but they're more prone to it. So your wild perennial type crops, or even purposefully planted perennial fodder crops, grass, alfalfa, chicory, even your clovers, those are all decent. Grass is very productive per square foot, but it's low protein. Clover and chicory, they're less productive per square foot, but they're much higher protein, higher vitamin, and higher mineral content than your grasses. Moving on, we're going to talk about some more of the higher calorie options and higher full protein options. Your green crops, they can be high protein, but they don't have a full type of protein. So for your omnivores, for your pigs, for your chickens, they need more of a full protein, like what we get out of soybean or meat products. And well, basically you get that type of thing from soy, beans in general. You get it from meat products and meat byproducts. And you get it from sunflower seed. That's the other great source of it. So sunflower seed is one of my #1 crops that I grow here. Sunflower. I tend to grow the giant sunflowers just because I like them. I got seeds for them. Plant what you got, make it work. Okay. Sunflowers. I grow a lot of sunflowers. Sunflower seeds are pretty much equal to soybean in oil content, calorie content, and in protein content. So you're talking about 40% protein in sunflower seeds. So I grow those for my chickens and for my pigs for a protein supplement because I don't want to have to buy protein. I bought only the tiniest bit of protein for my chickens and pigs this year, and they all did quite well. So besides sunflower seed, we have corn. I grow corn. I love corn because it is a very high calorie crop. You're talking about 1,600 to 1,500 calories per pound for corn. And it's about the same for most other common grains. But corn is the most productive of all those grains. So I can grow a lot more corn per square foot of it than any other grain. That's why I am only growing corn as far as grains, as far as your grass grains and cereal grains go. Excuse me. Gotta have a little coffee to stay up this late. So, corn. Shucks, I got a lot of corn. I got a bucket here of corn seeds that I saved from this year. I tend to grow, I like to grow flint corns because they're usually higher protein. And the corn that I particularly found to be my favorite is Wade's Giant Indian. I've been working on improving that strain for a while now, and it's growing quite well. Something like this. They're big old ears. I can get a lot of harvest out of those if I grow a good fertile crop with good rains. Another great crop that I grow quite a bit here now, this was my first year growing it, but I went crazy with it and I'm planting a lot more this fall for next year, is the sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. I just call them sunroots because that's more of a traditional name for them. Now, they're a type of sunflower, a multi-stem sunflower, but they grow big tall green shoots, little small flower heads all over them, and they grow tubers on the roots. And I have some of those here. Now, they're kind of lumpy. You can see all the different eyes. Some of these are starting to sprout right now because they've been in storage for a little while now. Different shapes, kind of different sizes, lumpy. There's a couple connected like that. They are about equal in nutrition to potatoes as far as calorie wise. They're higher protein and higher vitamin content than potatoes, and they're much more productive. In fact, I can grow twice the calories per square foot with sunchokes here as I can with my corn. And they went great around here, even as far north up here as Zone 5A. They went great. So I'm planting a lot of those. I recommend those to anyone who wants a good, easy to grow, reliable feed crop. The sunchokes, I'm feeding them to my pigs. We've given them to the rabbits. The chickens don't care for them too much, but they'll nibble on them. It's a great thing for sheep and cows. They're good for horses. You just got to get the animals used to them a little bit. They're a very fine textured sweet starch, and they're very high in ilenin starches, which digest a little differently. So you got to take a little time for the animals to get used to the sunchoke starches. And really that goes for any feed crop, but sunchokes are one of the ones that you want to pay extra careful attention to, just to ease animals into it, to help the flora, the bacteria types in the gut to adjust to properly break that down so they don't get too much indigestion. Especially with your ruminants, that can cause problems if you get bad indigestion problems. So we got our perennial pasture crops, we got corn, we got sunflowers, we got sunchokes. Next up here is sugar beets, or fodder beets in general, including the mango beets. I didn't actually grow this. I bought a few bags of sugar beets this year. I've grown the mango beets, which is basically an older version of the sugar beet. It's just got less sugars in it. And honestly, they're quite similar. The sugar beet, it's a great crop to grow. It's not quite what I'd call a concentrated feed, like the corn or the soybean. It's got less calories than your sunchokes, but they're super easy to grow. And as the whole thing, it's a great, basically complete feed crop for dairy cows, for dairy goats, with that corn in it, I'm thinking corn, with the sugar in it. They are considered a fairly high energy crop for your ruminants, for goats, for horses, sheep, cows, just those animals in general. You can even give these to your rabbits. In fact, I'm running some experiments on sugar beets right now. We're feeding them to rabbits as a sole feed for young rabbits raising up to butcher, and it looks like it's going to go great. So a crop like this, I mean, they grow big tall leaves too. If you want, you can save all those leafy greens as well. I don't. When I harvest something like this, I top them and the tops go back into the soil, because you have to put in more into the soil than you're taking out. It's the law of farming in the dirt. Put in more than you're taking out. You've got to let that soil organic matter build up, right? As much as you can. At the bare minimum, you have to put in as much as you're taking away every year. So all the green tops, I put those back in the soil. If you do it differently, you can save all the green tops and feed those to your animals and let this part stay in the ground, let the greens regrow. You can end up harvesting those 2 or 3 times in a season if you just leave the root in the ground. That works too. Sugar beets are easy to plant, they're easy to grow, they're easy to harvest. They store well. This one's been frozen solid a couple times already and it's not really squishy. It's holding up pretty good. They're a sturdy crop. Potatoes. You probably never thought of potatoes as a feed crop. Potatoes, well, because they're a fairly common crop, they're often fed to livestock. Potatoes are fed particularly to pigs in the raw state. There's some concern about feeding raw potatoes to sheep, goats, horses, rabbits, that they can cause digestive problems. I'm not too sold on that. I think you can ease them into it and it should be alright. But especially for pigs, my pigs love these potatoes. I can toss them in the pig pen, they'll chase after them. Potatoes are easy to grow. They grow great in cool weather. If you happen to have a lot of them, sure, great. Personally, I'd rather grow the sunchokes. They are a little more, well, you can't harvest sunchokes mechanically, really. You can harvest potatoes mechanically, but if you're doing them both by hand, the sunchokes do harvest faster and they grow more productive. So my idea that I had earlier in the year about growing potatoes for feed crops, I dropped that because the sunchokes are equally as nutritious, if not a little more so, and they grow more and they're easier to harvest. By the way, your sunflowers and sunchokes, you can grow those just for the green crop. You can, with the sunchokes, the Jerusalem artichokes, the sunroot, if you don't harvest the root bulbs, the tubers, you can top off the plants, you can strip the leaves, top the plants. You have a very high protein, very high mineral, a little low in vitamins, so you got to balance it out with some grasses or other leafy greens. But it's a very good fodder crop. It's particularly good for sheep and goats. Pretty good for cattle too, and a lot of folks actually will grow a field of sunflowers, harvest the whole thing's green, just the stem and the flower tops, and they'll ensile and make a silage out of it, and it's a really good silage for your cows, sheep, goats. Now what about pumpkins? You've probably heard somewhere around about pumpkins as a livestock feed, growing pumpkins for animals. I'm not very sold on the idea personally, just because they're not really all that productive in the terms of how many calories worth of feed or how many pounds worth of feed you can harvest per square foot with pumpkins. Honestly, I'd rather just grow like a perennial green crop usually, but sometimes pumpkins make sense. I went out and planted various squashes, winter squashes in general, and pumpkins out in the wild patch in the front here. And, well, I got to harvest the pumpkins for my pigs, and, well, I mean, that's a little extra starch. They have a little starch, a little sugar in them, more so than you get in grass. They have the seeds, which is a nice protein boost. The seeds in pumpkins and squashes actually basically double the calorie count of the whole squash itself. So when you feed them whole like that, they have a little more protein, they have some calories to them, and it can help. I wouldn't go out and plant a field full of pumpkins just for the pigs, but sometimes I will plant some winter squashes, pumpkins, Hubbards, something like that for my pigs, for the chickens, for the rabbits. Pumpkins and squash in general, great feed for rabbits. A good winter squash, by the way. I can raise up meat rabbits to butcher just on a winter squash. It works. I'll often plant some of those in a mixed crop plot that I'm growing for animal feed. Do something like, maybe I'll plant some sunflower, I'll plant some corn throughout a lot of it, and I'll probably do some squash just here and there. The thing I like about the squashes is that since they're a vining type squash, not a bushing type, because I'll plant the seed here just kind of in a wild spot. I'll plant it here. Well, that vine will kind of grow and find where the sun is throughout kind of an overgrown, more wild patch of dirt. So I like the pumpkins and the vining squashes for that reason. I can plant them, they'll work around and vine around and find some sunlight to grow. And that's what I did out front here. I planted some pumpkins, just kind of wild, and then I went through 6-foot tall grass and such, and at the end of the year, and we went through and we found some pumpkins in there and gave those to the pigs, and it helps. As much as you can, you do want a balanced diet for your animals, and That's very important. It helps to keep them healthy, gives them a better variety of vitamins, minerals, protein. As much as you can, think a balanced diet. We feed a lot of greens to our pigs, even though they don't need that. We feed greens to the pigs because they're super full of vitamins. And they have little minerals that are not in the grains that the pigs get. Our pigs get a lot of grains. They get higher protein stuff, like the corn, the sunchokes, maybe a little soybean, sunflower seed. But they need to have some of the green crops, some of your freshly picked, like grasses, burdock, maybe leaves from trees even for the mineral content. Get them some dandelions, some chicory, maybe some comfrey, some of those really high vitamin and mineral plants, or even just fresh grasses. As long as you go and pick them fresh, they're very high in vitamins that pigs don't get, that nothing gets out of grains and soybean. That way, I don't have to buy vitamin supplements. Our pigs, our chickens, our rabbits do not get any vitamin supplements in their feed. We do all the feed mixing ourselves, which is fermented grains and greens. Although this time of year there's no more greens. Do what you can. The last two things I want to talk about here are types of trees. You have your orchard trees, or just fruit trees in general, and then nut trees. A lot of people overlook the idea of fruit trees for animal feed. One of my favorites is a mulberry. If you plant, or if you have wild mulberry, you give it some good sunlight, take care of it just a little bitty bit, it's going to be the most productive tree you could ever imagine. And it's going to drop a lot of very rich, sugar, starchy filled fruits for your animals to eat. You can fatten pigs up just on a mulberry tree. So if you have a pasture area, consider putting some mulberry trees either in it or right along the edges. Same thing with things like apple, pear, maybe some crab apple. If you're a little bit further south than me, maybe a persimmon. And then nut trees. Acorns can work. Oak trees are all right. Chestnut trees are getting more popular. The hybrid chestnut tree, crosses between American and Chinese chestnuts. They're more productive, more vigorous, and they grow nuts earlier. And honestly, it's a great thing to consider. There's a lot of hybrid oak trees that are specially hybridized so that they are much more nut producing. They produce larger, softer, bigger nuts for animal and wildlife feed. And you can look those up online if you're interested. I, at some point, am going to put in a whole bunch of those trees myself. So it comes down to this. The crops that I recommend for people to consider seriously. Corn. Find a good, productive variety that works good for your area. Sunchokes. Sunchokes will grow anywhere where any crops can be grown. They love the cooler weather. They're freeze hardy, cold tolerant. They do great in warmer weather too. Then your perennial grasses. Perennial grasses and things like chicory, alfalfa, comfrey, clovers, those kind of things, because they just work every time. What we're planting this coming spring for our livestock feed is going to be corn, quite a bit of it, sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes, a lot of those. I'm planting sugar beet this spring for pig and rabbit feed. And I don't have any to show you, but we're going to be planting a lot of sunflowers to harvest the seeds, sunflower seeds for protein content for the animals. And that's a very well-rounded mixture of feed crops for the animals, and combine that with the wild greens that I'll be able to harvest from down along the side of the road and from up on the side of the yard here, your wild grasses, wild chicory mainly, and the vitamin content in those combined with the energy content and the protein that I get out of my other crops, and I can mix up a very good hog ration from that. I can mix up a great, just a good balanced diet for the chickens, for the rabbits. I'm also going to mention the most drought tolerant crop I've ever been able to find, ever been able to grow are sunflowers, including the sunchokes, because it is a type of sunflower. Sunchokes are more drought tolerant and they're very cold hardy. They're actually, I can plant sunflower seeds early spring. The seedlings will start growing while there's still frost in the ground sometimes. They can withstand a couple freezes on the seedlings before they freeze out all the way usually. So sunflowers, Jerusalem artichokes are the two that I recommend everybody start growing somewhere. Other than that, I would say let some grasses grow, use that for feed, or at least for a vitamin supplement for your pigs and chickens. And consider, where'd it go? Yeah. Consider something like your mango beets or your sugar beets as a fodder beet, and some corn. Well, thanks for watching. It's getting late and I got chores to do, so I'm going to let you guys go. Bye now.